guys, I'm Jen, this is my channel Sir Tommy, and this is my first ever booktube video. And for this one I'm going to do a monthly wrap up for obviously the month of January. It was really awesome. I actually read 8 books this month, which is quite an achievement for me because I don't normally read that many. So let's get started. Okay, so the first book I read this month was 1984 by George Orwell. It was a pretty good book. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I really liked the world building, or at least the politics around it. I thought that was the really intriguing part, and I think that is what has elevated the book to its status these days. And I mean, some people will say Winston is not a likable character, you can't relate to him. But again, I also think that is the point. I don't think you're meant to like any of the characters in this book. So in that sense, that's what I took from it. I really liked it and I gave it 3.5 stars. The second book I read this month, I feel like doesn't need much of an introduction. Yep. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Aguirre Sanz. I hope I said that right. I mean, do I have to tell you that I liked this book? I haven't heard anyone not liking this book. So, yes, I really did like it. I liked it a lot for its positive relationships, like both Dante and his parents especially, but also Ari and his parents. They all seem to have, at some point, really positive relationships. And I think my favourite quote from this book is when Dante says that he's crazy about his parents. I have never read quite that description before and I really loved it, and I kind of went, oh, and really endeared himself to me in that way. The other thing I really liked about this book, and I feel like some people haven't touched on this, is Legs, the golden retriever cross stray dog that Ari gets. I really believe in pet therapy. I really love dogs, and I really picked up on that vibe in this book. That Legs was not just a companion, but really good therapy for Ari, and I feel like if he hadn't had Legs, I don't think he wouldn't have gotten to where he got to, but I think it really helped with the process and really broke down a lot of barriers for Ari to talk to people, both Dante, his parents, Dante's parents. So I thought that was really well done. It was very subtle, but I think it was deliberate, and I just really liked that aspect. So, of course, I gave this 5 stars. The next book I read was actually a reread, and it is City of Heavenly Fire from the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. Now, I know some people are not a fan of this series or Cassandra Clare in general, but I love her. She is, well, this series in particular is my Harry Potter. You know how people say Harry Potter got them into reading, or really into reading, and they just love it no matter its flaws. I think this is that book for me. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. I mean, I've read the books, but this is what that is to me, this series. And so I reread this book, and it was wonderful. I really enjoyed myself. I binge read it in like 3 days, and it's like a 700-page book. So I think this is my favourite. Either this one or City of Glass, but I just love everything that happened with the character development. I love just the thought that went into this book in particular, and the writing is so much better than in the first couple of books. But again, I get why people won't want to read through 5 long books to get to this one, but I really loved it, and for my personal sentiment, I gave it 5 stars. Okay, so then it was Diverseathon, and that was held by Christina Marie and Squibble Reads, and a bunch of people who I can't think of right now, and I have not got their names in front of me, but I'll link them down below. But yes, so the first book I read for Diverseathon 2017 is Anyway the Wind Blows by Carlin Grant. Now, this is a really tiny ebook, tiny like as in 60 pages maybe, and it is about an asexual, aromantic character and kind of an aromantic asexual relationship. So the main character's name is Callie, and she kind of just travels between farms and does work and, you know, lives the nomadic lifestyle, I would say. And she's really cool. She identifies as asexual, aromantic, and those words are on the page. There is description about that, which is very important because I identify as asexual and aromantic, or aroace. So having that and seeing it on the page was so special to me. And I was just like, yes, that's exactly how it is. And it was simple. And the reaction of the person she was telling, Jo, who is a female mechanic, let's just say I love mechanics in books, female mechanics especially, explaining it to Jo, and then for Jo to be like, oh, I didn't know that was the thing, and then that be it, was kind of all kinds of right. That's the kind of conversation I wish I had when I had to explain my sexuality and my romantic inclinations. So I loved that aspect. But there's more to this ebook than just that. It's about a platonic relationship between Callie and Jo, who meet at a farm that Jo's brother owns and that Callie's working at for a couple of weeks/months. And they develop a really strong relationship. And Jo's really struggling with family issues because her family's really trying to push her into a relationship that she doesn't want. And she doesn't know how to stand up for herself in that way. She can physically stand up for herself because she's a war veteran. But that part, she's not sure who she is there. And Callie really helps her with that. And that whole thing was just beautiful to read. And I was like, yes, because friendship is so important. Definitely, I highly recommend reading it. And I gave Anyway the Wind Blows 4.5 stars. Next book I read, also for Diverseathon, also features an asexual character, and that is The Bone People by Kerry Holm. Can you see that? There we go. This book is written by a New Zealand author who has Maori blood in her, and it's very much about Maori mythology. So I was made aware of this book a few years ago. I read it then, loved it, really identified with the main character, Carowyn, who is asexual and possibly aromantic. She does explain herself in the fact that she doesn't have those kind of feelings and she doesn't understand it. She doesn't really use the word asexual or aromantic, but it's pretty clear. And I respect her a lot for that. Yeah, also own voices. So the author, Kerry Holm, is asexual, aromantic. She has got some Maori blood in her, and yes, she lives in New Zealand. So this is really cool. This book, how do I describe the plot of this book? Essentially, it's about three characters. The main character is Carowyn, who's like this solitary, strong woman in like her 30s who has completely isolated herself in this handmade tower on a very small town in New Zealand. I think the South Island, but don't take me for my word on that. And she's just doing her own thing. She lives a sustainable life. She grows her own veggies. She goes hunting. She doesn't socialize with the locals very much. And then she meets a young boy named Simon. He is mute and has a bit of a troubled past and very unknown past because he washed up from a shipwreck and was semi-adopted by his father Jo, who we meet a little bit later. Now, Simon is a bit of a troubled kid, and Carowyn doesn't want to like him, but she ends up liking him, and she really takes him under her wing. She meets his father Jo, who is a really nice guy and a really cool character, but he has things that I don't know if they're forgivable or not. And it kind of engages with that throughout the story, and things get really good. They sort of work around each other because, again, Carowyn is asexual, so she doesn't want to be a part of the family in the way that Jo and Simon want her to be. And it revolves around that and then goes a bit pear-shaped. And it's a good book. It is written in an interesting way. It's a very stream of consciousness. It's a very stream of consciousness, I think that's the term. And I do know some people find that very difficult and have given it bad reviews because of that. But I adjusted pretty quickly. So I gave this book 4 stars. Highly recommend. And the next book I read was also for Diverseathon, and that is White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. I hope I said that right. Now, this is a difficult book to explain, but essentially it's a really twisted tale about this girl Miranda's disappearance, but it's much more complicated than that, and very creepy horror. I would say there's a bit of horror in this. It's a good book to read in like Halloween time because it's really weird and sometimes you don't know what's going on. This is also written in a very strange way, but it's not stream of conscious, it's something else. It's literary fiction, so everything that's in there means something. It's a little bit, got a lot of symbolism, all that sort of stuff. And it talks about her twin brother Elliot, their relationship. It talks about her, Miranda's relationship with a woman called Ore, I think her name is, in college, which is very interesting. I actually think that's the best part of the book, to be honest, because that's a very interesting relationship. But I keep moving this book around, I'm sorry guys. But yeah, I liked it, but I was a bit meh about it. I didn't really know what I was reading at times, and I liked the horror aspect, and I get the general overall idea about it. But I ended up giving it 2.5, 3 on Goodreads because it deserved a 3 more than a 2, but overall it's a 2.5 rating. I would recommend it, but I think you have to be in a particular mood to read it and you really have to focus to understand what's going on. And even then you still might not understand what's going on. So, the last book I read for Diverseathon, and it kind of went a little bit over the timeline, was reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi. So, this is an interesting book. Okay, I feel like it's misrepresented, and I think a few other people feel the same, because you get from impression on the blurb on the back and the title, you think this is about a woman who's starting up a book club in Iran during the Iranian Revolution for women, which is quite controversial, you'd imagine. And yes, that's in here, but that's really not what this book is about. This book is about Azar Nafisi, because this is a memoir, so it's non-fiction. And it's about her love of books and living in Tehran, in Iran, during the Iranian Revolution, and seeing how her beloved books are treated, and how her students, because she is a teacher at university, seeing how her students react to the books depending on their political ideas and all that stuff, and how that changes, because this takes place over a number of years, over a decade I believe. So yes, it does feature the book club, especially at the beginning, but I would say it focuses more on the girls in that book club than actually the act of the book club. So it was enjoyable, but again, read a lot like essays, some good comparisons, but I feel like there was a lot in here that I was like, do I need to read that? So I ended up giving this 3 stars. Worth a read just for the whole input on what went on in the Iranian Revolution from a lower key perspective, you know, not biased by media or politics or anything like that. So it's good for that thing, and for understanding how she taught literature in Iran, because that was fascinating. But yeah, 3 stars. Okay, the last book I read in January, and this was after Diverseathon and finished. I needed a light read after my last 3 books, so I picked up Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. So if you know Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which I haven't read but I know about it, this is another book very similar to that, written by the same authors. So it's about Dash and Lily. Lily leaves a red notebook in the Strand in New York, famous bookstore, basically with like a whole list of dares, and Dash finds this book. He replies to those dares and then he leaves dares of his own, and it kind of goes on for like that for a long time until they meet and what happens after that. It's very cute, but it's not like this book did much for me besides entertain me. All the nerdy book references was kind of cute, but I felt like the characters tried too hard to be witty. All the characters were witty and unusual, and I don't know. That was nice, but I think it just tried too hard. I also felt it read like a bit like fan fiction. There were some events in here that I was just like, oh, come on. Even in sitcoms, they wouldn't fall for those kind of traps. It did actually make fun of itself a few times, well, fairly often in this book. You know, it didn't take itself too seriously, so that was kind of enjoyable and kind of redeemed it a bit for me too. If you're in for a light read, or you've just read already heavy books and you need something a bit different, I would recommend this. I gave it 3 stars, but if you're looking for something special, maybe not this book. So those are the 8 books I read in January. I really enjoyed myself. I would say it was a pretty good reading month, considering besides one book, everything was 3 stars or over. So that's awesome. I'm looking forward to February. And I hope you guys have a great reading month. I would love to know what you read, what you enjoyed. So if you've read some of these books, like The Bone People, I would really love to hear your thoughts on it. And I will see you in my next video. Bye! Simon, he's mute.